destruction of the temple, exactly this destruction here. Exactly this destruction here. If you know the prophet Ezekiel, he hears in a miraculous way that the temple is destroyed, and he cannot prophesy. His tongue clings to the roof of his mouth 390 days. So I think we're talking not only symbolically, but within Daniel, but also Ezekiel here. 390 years before, what happens? Prophecy starts again. That's really what the 390 is about here. For prophesying starts again. And it doesn't matter. Say, well, that was days. This is years. More or less, they don't care. It's the 390 that matters to them. It doesn't matter days, years, months, or whatever. It's the numbers that matter. Okay, so now, anyway, it was 390 years after he gave them over to Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Notice when they, not worried about someone, they mention his name. There's another text here. It's a bit stuffy here. You want to open that door so folks, or open this window here so folks don't die, because this is pretty heavy stuff for doing it in a stuffy room. And if anyone wants to walk out while I'm talking, that's fine, because this is pretty abstruse stuff, and I don't want to bore anyone or put anyone to sleep, because I admit this is heavy stuff, and it can be pretty boring if you're not interested in it. So you wouldn't embarrass me at all if you do walk out. Look, there's a text called the Nahum commentary, the Nahum Pesher. Many of you may or may not have read it. It's also in this collection, and for the neophytes, obviously, they've never heard of any of this stuff, and I just can't go through it all in one lecture and make you an expert instantly on the scrolls. But the Nahum Pesher does mention known people. Demetrius, it talks about, and we think it means Demetrius, king of Greece. And that is someone Josephus does refer to, and seems to be in the period of Alexander Onias, who was the Maccabean, the third Maccabean king generation after Judas Maccabee and his brothers, then John Hyrcanus, then Alexander Onias, bringing us down to about 100 BC. And you see, it is not, the scrolls are not shy of mentioning people, and I've always emphasized it over and over again, who are ancient history. And in that Nahum Pesher, again, are what I call dumbbell scholars run and say, look, the scroll mentions Demetrius, and it seems to be talking about Alexander Onias, and so on. Scrolls are written in the Maccabean period. Again, total nonsense.
Mentions Nebuchadnezzar.
Total nonsense. It usually means that's past history, because the scroll people knew their history as well as Josephus did. You have to understand. Josephus probably stayed with these people. He talks about spending 3 years as a neophyte out in the wilderness, if you read his work closely in his autobiography. And he very probably spent time with this group. They know history at least as well as Josephus did. They're not stupid. They may not know their chronology well, but they do know their history. So they are not shy of mentioning past history. But it's the present generation where their weird code comes into play. Righteous teacher, wicked priest, and other things. Okay. And so there sprang, he visited them. God visited them. That is the meaning here. I think it's unavoidable. What do we mean by God visited the earth? Do we mean Immaculate Conception or something like that? I don't know what they mean here. But the very point is, we have it in another text that Jim is familiar with that we just published. God visited them. God visited them in, I forget which text was that we had the visiting again, Jim, that we just published. Was it in that Messianic text or the war prayer? One of the two of those. Anyway, I think it was in the Messianic text that we just published in Bar. So we know two texts talking about God visiting the earth. What way will God visit the earth? Hey, I'm not a preacher, I don't know. But I think in the War Scroll it's quite clear that they're preparing for the visitation. It's quite clear, the War Scroll, and I can't read all these texts here. I'd love to do it. It takes me about half a three-month course to do it in, and I can't do it in 1 hour, or even, impose on your patience for much more than that. But the point is that in the War Scroll, they are waiting in the wilderness. If you look at it carefully, look at column if you're interested. The Roman numerals here are the column numbers. Look at column XI, column 11 of the War Scroll, and you'll see in that column the most incredible stuff, where the Messianic prophecy also analyzed or interpreted in the Damascus document here, and also interpreted in the Messianic proof text from Qumran. The Messianic prophecy, Numbers 24, star shall rise out of Jacob, a scepter shall to rule the world. That is analyzed in terms of Daniel 7, the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. It is analyzed in a messianic way, and the whole point of it is that the heavenly host led by the Messiah, will come down from heaven, join their camps, and fight on their side in the final apocalyptic war against all evil on this earth, first in Palestine and then the world, to eradicate all the sons of darkness, all evil from the earth. This is a holy army. It may be allegorical, that text, as our establishment scholars try to say, in perpetrating or perpetuating their Essene theory. But I think if anyone who reads the War Scroll, it's just I think that the writer is a bad writer, but I don't think it's an allegorical text. He just is writing, he's never fought. He's so busy telling what slogans you're going to put on the trumpets, just like this chap up in Jerusalem that you've all seen. But the slogans on his trumpets, I love to read through the War Scroll, because the slogans are quite incredible, and they're very Zionistic, wild, sort of more like Cromwell's onward Christian soldier type army than anything our chap up here in the restoration of the Third Temple trumpets ever even imagined. I mean, you could even put them on, I think, missiles and atomic bombs if you were preparing that kind of army. But I think he just was, as I said, the fellow who wrote the War Scroll just wasn't used to fighting. He was an armchair warrior, so it looks maybe it was an imaginary war, but not in his mind. In his mind, this is really going to happen. This is a real war that he's